Senator Lindsey Graham joins us. How are you, sir?
Good. That's a good overview. Yeah, we have been weakened. And if you want to bring the world back to some sense of order, vote for Trump.
Well, it's true. I think they fear Donald Trump. I don't think they feel Kamala Harris or Joe Biden.
Well, I fear Donald Trump. They should. I mean, I fear him in all the good ways. I mean, I really do believe when he killed Soleimani, who was the head of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, who was a international terrorist designated, I think, in 2011, when he showed resolve to take him out because he thought he was going to attack Americans in Iraq, that changed the game, along with isolating the regime and hitting them where they hurt the most in their pocketbook with oil sales. When Trump left office, Sean, they were doing 300,000 barrels a day. They're doing about 1.2 million barrels a day, the Iranians, and that's $80 billion they plowed into their war machine.
That is unbelievable, and they do it to foment terror.
Right.
Now, it was interesting after they took out Hamas's number one guy, the new Iranian president, according to reports, went to the, quote, supreme leader who had threatened retaliation against Israel and said, don't do it.
Right.
Now, we know the supreme leader is hiding in a bunker deep down in the ground somewhere in Iran, which is a huge landmass, which tells me that guy is scared to death that he's likely the next target on Israel's list. And based on their track record right now, I would say the odds are pretty high. They probably have eyeballs on him somewhere.
Yeah, you detail the pagers, I don't know who did it, but if I were a betting man, it probably was Israel. The bottom line here is that when people are trying to kill you for decades, you get really good at defending yourself. October the 7th was designed to stop normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel. Iran fears the Arabs and Israel doing peace. President Trump got 6 Arab nations on his watch to recognize Israel. The next step is Saudi Arabia, and Iran fears that the most. So Israel, if I were Israel, here's what I would do. I would put Biden on notice. He's hit them hard, and Hamas, Hezbollah, going after these organizations. And now it's time to take it to downtown Iran because they could fire 1,000 missiles at once, and that could overwhelm Iron Dome. So if I were the Israelis, I would take out 1 or 2 oil refineries to up the ante. If you keep hitting me, I'm going to put you out of business.
Well, it seems to me if you cut off the money, you're going to cut off the flow of terror funds, and you cut off the flow of terror funds, they can't be fighting proxy war after proxy war, right?
Yeah, you got it. And we got 2 carrier task force strike groups. I think it's the Abraham Lincoln and maybe the Washington. We got 2 aircraft carriers stationed in the Mediterranean in that area, but we don't have deterrence. They're not really certain. They really believe Iran does it. Biden's never going to do anything. If Donald Trump sent a rowboat over with a guy with a pistol, they would stop. It doesn't matter how much force you have if the enemy doesn't believe you will use it. And that was the magic of Donald Trump. He didn't want to intervene in other people's business. He wanted peace, but if you screwed with him, you paid a heavy price. So until he comes back, it's going to be very dicey. And if you want the world to stop all the crazy stuff, don't elect Kamala Harris. She's weaker than Biden. But I fear that our friends in Israel are going to have 2 problems. More missile attacks, and Iran's going to see a nuclear weapon as their insurance policy. They're losing Hamas and Hezbollah. They're 2 terrorist proxies along with the Houthis. They're under siege. So I fear they're going to break out and try to get a nuke before Trump gets in office.
Do you think they could possibly be that close? And what are Americans to think when we hear that, and I keep reading about Iranian assassination squads in our country out to kill Donald Trump on top of the other 2 assassination attempts?
Oh, I'm going to write a letter to President Biden. He has not said one word regarding Iran's brazen attempt to kill President Trump. Now, this is public record. I was briefed along with other senators about efforts Iran and other countries are taking to interfere with our election. They've hacked into this campaign. It's openly known now they're trying to literally kill President Trump. And President Biden hasn't said one word. What he should say, an attack on any candidate, on any politician, would be an attack on America as a whole, and we will make you pay a heavy price. Until Biden says that, I think this is going to get worse. And what did Trump say? If the shoe were on the other foot, if a Democratic opponent of mine was threatened by a foreign power, I'd let them know I'd flatten the place if you attacked him or her. What's missing is deterrence. Nobody in the world is afraid of Biden or Harris.
Where do you see the election, and do you think this is going to be now a big election issue? Because I would imagine in the days ahead, Israel is going to respond, probably sooner than later.
Yeah, I hope it's not days. Yeah, I do, Sean. I think Americans are, all I can say is I know we don't want to get involved in other people's business, and that's a good quality, not to be an adventurous nation because we're so powerful. But there's sometimes you got to hit them before they hit you. Now, the Iranians want to purify Islam. That's why the Arabs fear the Ayatollah. They think he wants to take over Islam. That's what he says. They want to destroy all the Jews and come after us as infidels. Their words, not mine. So when the Taliban took over Afghanistan and we ignored it, we paid a heavy price. So I would say to the American people, what Iran is doing to Israel, they would do to you if they could. If they ever get a nuclear weapon, they'll use it. The Ayatollah is a religious Nazi. He literally wants to kill all the Jews. He's trying to dominate Islam, and he's coming for us. He's a religious fanatic. I don't know why Hitler wanted to kill all the Jews, but he did. He wrote a book. Nobody believed him. I believe the Ayatollah is a threat to the planet, and if we don't help Israel now, we're going to be next.
I don't disagree with one word you said. Let me play your Democratic colleagues attacking Israel, saying they're not going to send military aid, and actually blaming Israel for the equivalent of losing 40,000 Israelis on October 7th. Listen.
I made it clear that if they go into Rafah, they haven't gone into Rafah yet. If they go into Rafah, I'm not supplying the weapons that have been used historically to deal with Rafah.
Is the Biden administration position still that there should be zero conditions on aid, military aid to Israel?
I'm not going to get ahead of the president or decisions he might or might not make going forward. He was very clear in his call with the prime minister that if we don't see some changes in their policies in Gaza and the way they're prosecuting operations, we're going to have to make some changes of our own.
The genocidal maniac Netanyahu and his senior Israeli officials.
You've had words with Benjamin Netanyahu. The president has had words with Benjamin Netanyahu. At what point does the policy change? Saying to Israel that in order to get military aid, you have to change your tact. When does that happen?
I think we're at that point.
We have been clear in multiple conversations and in every way that any major military operation in Rafah would be a huge mistake.
A mistake, but would there be consequences if he does move forward?
Well, we're going to take it one step at a time, but we've been very clear in terms of our perspective on whether or not that should happen.
But we are seeing them hold back in the sending of weapons. That's actually a pretty significant sign, given that the United States and Israel has a long-standing connection between on military support, where the United States is a big provider of that.
Has the United States done that many times before, withheld the weapons?
Not many times before. Each year, our country, and I say our country because it is our country, sends billions of dollars to maintain an apartheid government and support the ongoing ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. It is disgraceful.
Far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. And we have got to get a deal done.
Hamas and the Palestinians who support and tolerate their evil ways, radical right-wing Israelis in government and society, President Abbas, Prime Minister Netanyahu. These are the four obstacles to peace.
You know, it's unbelievable. And then I'm watching, Tony Wink and Blinken today say, this is not acceptable. What do you mean it's not acceptable? What is it? What is the administration going to do? They're just sitting back doing nothing, and they're the ones that empowered them to get rich because they turned a blind eye to the sanctions. They gave sanction waivers for $10 billion payments from Iraq, and they wanted themselves to give a $6 billion ransom to Iran. This is madness to me. And they brought back the Iranian deal that will give them a nuclear weapon.
I wish everybody would listen to your show. When Austin and Biden say don't, people do. The Iranians believe it's acceptable or they wouldn't do it. Again, we got two aircraft carriers parked in the Mediterranean, and you don't see Iran being, coward. You don't see them being deterred. It is about the resolve of the president in the eyes of your enemies. If you really want to make the world a more stable place so where we can travel and visit and do business throughout the world without being killed, then you need to vote for Donald Trump. I know he can be a handful, but when he was president, I've never seen anything like it. He got Mexico to change their policies because he's going to put tariffs on their products if they didn't help us with the border. He had 6 Arab nations make peace with Israel because he stood up to Iran. There's been no better friend of Israel than Donald Trump. We had no war when he was president. If you want to fix this, you have a chance in November to do it. Take that chance.
Well, I hope people are listening, and early voting has started, and especially our friends in Georgia, our friends in South Carolina, our friends in North Carolina, our friends in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, our friends in Arizona, our friends in Nevada. Those are the states that will determine the outcome of this election. Senator Lindsey Graham, appreciate you. It was pretty scary times we're living in, I'll tell you that.